Welcome to the American Valor podcast. Today, I am speaking with Al Bumbry, outfielder for the Orioles and San Diego Padres. Al was drafted in 1968 to the Major League Baseball from Virginia State College when he played basketball, baseball, and served with the ROTC unit there. After his time at college, he went on to the U.S. Army and served in Vietnam from 1969 to 1971. In the Army, he was awarded the Bronze Star Medal. Then he returned into Major League Baseball, became the 1973 American League Rookie of the Year. With the Orioles, he was an All Star and a 1983 World Champion. He ended his baseball career with the San Diego Padres, and then he later on served as a first base coach for three Major League Baseball teams and has been inducted into the Baltimore Orioles Hall of Fame and the Virginia Sports Hall of Fame. Al, it's so good to have you with us on the show today.
Yeah, thank you, Enrique. That introduction sounded it sounded very good. It sounds very flattering, so to speak. I guess I never grouped all those things together like that at one time. So very pleased with the introduction. I think you did a very good job, and you covered all the bases on the edges.
All right, no pun intended on the basis there.
Yeah.
but but it's so good to have you, and no, those stats are yours, so I'm just retelling what you've already done, and I'm so fortunate to have you with us. So at the Bob Feller Active Valor Foundation, we strive to educate, support, and recognize by instilling the timeless values of service, sacrifice, citizenship, and legacy. And I wanted to ask you several questions around those four pillars, and we'll begin with service. Your dedication to Major League Baseball is matched by your service to our country during Vietnam and that war. Can you reflect on how your experience in the military influenced your perspective on service both on and off the field?
Well, to me, I get asked that question a lot when people look at the 3 months that I played baseball prior to going on active duty. And I was in Stockton, California, and I hit, I think, 178. 178, I think I weighed more than that. And then I was glad to stop my military requirement at that point because I was doing so poorly. And then I was stationed at Fort Meade for a year, and then I get orders to go to Vietnam. I'm there for a year, and needless to say, I never got to play any baseball there. And when I came back to playing baseball after 2 years of not playing any baseball, the first year I started to play in the minor leagues, I hit 330, 337 or 343, something like that. And then after that, the next year I was in the big leagues. And people ask me, well, how do you account for that 178 and don't play baseball for 2 years and then come back and hit, way over 300? And my answer to that is, and it's similar to the answer that you just asked for, was, the serving in the military, it made me mature. I grew up in a hurry, once I got to Vietnam for sure. And the thing that I took from that was that, life is very precious. I had an obligation. I wanted to do it. But that experience that I gained in the military, it helped me immensely, and towards, me developing as a major league player.
And that's so profound because we both know as service members that you do grow up in a hurry. I
Yeah.
was not thrusted into the war, but believe you me, when my 2 feet landed on those yellow footprints, it was growing up 101 to 2000, right? And so
Right.
I could definitely relate to that speedy growing up.
Yes, and when I was at Virginia State, I was in the ROTC program, and we had obviously part of that education was, learning to read the map and learn all the military tactics, etc. I can't remember being very successful at reading maps in Virginia State. And when I got to Vietnam, there's no road map there. It's all topographical stuff. There's no street names, there's no words. You just see greens and yellows and browns and diagrams. And I learned how to read that map pretty damn quick once I got there.
Yeah, that's not the place you want to get lost.
No.
And I know that navigation is one of the classes that they teach both in college and at in service. So I know how valuable that is. Now you talk about going to Vietnam, a huge sacrifice, right? Serving in Vietnam undoubtedly required significant sacrifice. How did your time in the military shape your approach to challenges and adversity in your baseball career?
Well, I think the experience I had in Vietnam, it set the tone for, the things that I did when I came back from Vietnam. And the biggest thing was no one looks forward to going into combat. Nobody looks forward to going into a war. And I was no different than anybody else. I had an obligation to fulfill. I raised my right hand by getting into the advanced ROTC program. And I knew eventually that I probably would have to go to Vietnam. So I went to Vietnam, and what it taught me was, the value of life. I had 45 men in my platoon whose lives I was responsible for, in addition to my own. And my commander said to me, this war was going on before you got here. It will be going on after you leave. Your number one priority should be to make sure you and your men get back home. And I think in the year, and I that was the direction I operate under. I did my job. I did what was required. I can't say I was a hero, but I did my job. And I think all but one of my men, I remember one, I think it may have been two, that lost their lives, while I was there. And then because of that discipline, and when I came back, to the US, all of that helped me maintain or helped me thrive and helped me develop and helped me learn to play baseball. And that was the driving factor there. There's no substitute for the experience I learned there. And I'm not the only Vietnam veteran that feel this way because the Vietnam War no war is really popular, but this one was, a lot of people did not want to go to, and other people know why we were there. And I can't say that, like I said earlier, I didn't do cartwheels, because I had to go. It was an obligation. And when I came back, my players on the team, they never asked me about Vietnam because I think they sensed, and because I didn't talk much about it, they didn't ask a lot of questions. When I get one-on-one with someone, they ask me, I'm more receptive to it. And needless to say, because of the unpopularity of that war, the citizens here in the U.S., they were not very receptive or acknowledging returning veterans from Vietnam. And then I think ever since 9/11, the atmosphere changed, the position changed. And now people will, once they find out who I am, they will say, thank you for your service. Now that hits me every time someone says that, because initially you ever hardly heard it, and now you hear it all the time, which I'm very appreciative of it, and it makes me feel good. I feel better about that now than I did before. Not that it was imperative and not that I was expecting it, heroes welcome, so to speak. That was not me at all. But since 9/11, people have come to recognize it, and some people are still surprised. Oh, I didn't know you served in the service. But now more people are aware of it, and it makes me feel good that they recognize it.
And it's good that they have come to that point to be able to recognize a service, whatever conflict it may have been. And we definitely thank you for that.
No problem. You're quite welcome. Thank you.
I believe it as a person that has three different war decades behind him. I came in the Cold War, served in first Iraq War, and then Afghanistan all throughout my service. Now, you mentioned something that's peculiar. You said not a hero. The Bronze Star is not given in a period of peace. It has to come with some trials, some real desperate and dire surroundings, and you was awarded the Bronze Star, typically associated with some type of combat or combat event. And so I just want to reiterate that although you may not feel that way, us that serve understand the value of that medal. And so we appreciate what you did when you did it and being awarded that. How did that make you feel?
Well, how did that make me feel? Uh, I give an example leading up to it in that when I was voted American League Rookie of the Year, I didn't know anything about, the significance of that award and or being named the American League Rookie of the Year. And I realized it years afterwards, particularly when people bring it up all the time. And when I received the award for gallantry, I guess you would say, it was part of my responsibility. I committed, to join the service. I committed to going to Vietnam, and I committed, and I channel all my energy towards, obviously being successful there, and successful there meant getting back home. Because the war was going on, I was told it went on after I left, so I was able to get back. So I can't say I was pumping my chest because of it, but obviously it made me feel good, and I was very appreciative of it. But I would have been fine had I not received it. It was all in the line of duty. So I think there's a Clint Eastwood movie that mentioned in the line of duty. I love that movie. So all of that was in the line of duty in terms of how I received the Bronze Star.
And I love that. The humility behind most recipients is echoed throughout. And I appreciate that feeling because most of the world does not know exactly what it takes to get to that something that point, but they see those awards in a different light. And so I appreciate your take on that. Now, we talk about legacy. I know that Major League Baseball has legacy also attached to it. And your legacy spans both your achievements in Major League Baseball and service to the nation as someone who has left an indelible mark in multiple arenas. What do you hope future generations remember most about your legacy?
Sometimes I get asked that question about my legacy, and sometimes I say to myself, "What is it? What is a legacy, and what is my legacy?" I can't say that it's something that I've thought about, and come to, an answer. It's just that it can be very short. I'm a very simple-minded person. I was very introverted in high school and college, and of course, going in the military was part of my maturation and getting out from that. uh, I didn't speak very well. In fact, I did not like to go out in the public to speak because I had a speech impediment. But here again, I learned, and I don't mind now, and I do fairly well if I must say so. But in terms of legacy, I can simply say, that I'm a person, and I tell my son, I tell kids when I go out to speak to them that you're no better than your word. And if you commit and you promise someone you're going to do something, or if you have a job to do, then you do that job. You committed to it, And that's the way it was with my military. I had a job to do. I committed myself to it, and I did it. When I came back to baseball, it was the same thing. I wanted to be a baseball player, not initially, but once I got into baseball, I wanted to succeed at it, and I did whatever I needed to do to be successful. And that's how I function. That's the way I function now, even after a military and baseball. I still function the same thing. So I guess my legacy would be I could be depended upon, and I was a liable person, to fulfill whatever commitment I made or to hold my word to whatever I said I would do. I'm
Well,
not a statistical person, but I just if I have a job to do, you can depend that I'm going to do it. If I tell you something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So I guess simplified. I guess my legacy would be I was successful uh, for the most part at everything I did in life, and if I make a commitment, you can believe that was my commitment, and you could depend on it.
And that's beautifully stated and a wonderful thing to hear. Now, as we talk about commitment, your service in Vietnam exemplifies your commitment to citizenship and duty. So, how do you believe athletes can leverage their platform to advocate for important issues, particularly those related to veterans and active duty military personnel?
Well, Enrique, I'm not very active along those lines, but I think we're mindful of it, and I don't. I think it's a personal thing. If athletes want to be, active in various phases of regarding the military, then that's. I don't think they actually have a obligation. I think it's what the athlete feels. And like I said way back then about being a hero, in a sense of going to a war and being excited about it and operating over there, under those terms, that wasn't me. So I'm very reserved, and I chose, that when I'm asked to do military stuff, go to an event or whatever, I will do that. But I'm not a person that will take an active role in it. When I'm asked to make contributions to causes or whatever, I'll do it. But I'm not a kind of person that jumps out there and actually do a lot in that regard, because I'm very reserved. I think a lot of that introvertness that I had, it's still there. But if someone wants me to do something, I'll be glad to help them out. But it's not something that I actually do and I'm actively involved. So I can't say that I feel comfortable in suggesting things to other athletes or other military people as to how they should, approach that.
Yeah, and I agree. These activities are something that folks have to choose to be a part of, even if they served. I know personally a person that served at the highest rank in the enlisted force, and when they retired, they said that was it. And so
Yeah.
it's perfectly fine to choose not to. But for those that do participate actively in those regards, my hat's out to you, as well as those that choose to do it whenever it is convenient for them, because every little bit helps
Mm-hmm.
to support folks. And thank you for all the times that you have supported the ask. We asked you to be on the show, and you have supported, and so we are grateful. Now, Al, if somebody's listening to this or viewing the video, and they say, "Wow, man, I would love to get a hold of Al, express my appreciation for Al," how would they do that? What would be the best way for them to do so?
I don't know. It's amazing. When I was playing baseball, people wanted autographs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They'd write me a note or send me a note, excuse me, and asking for an autograph, and I'd respond to it. And all that mail was sent to the ballpark. Since I've been retired, that some of the mail still goes to the ballpark. Very few of it goes to the ballpark. And I get more mail here at my house now. I'm surprised at the number of fan mail I get. And when people want to reach me, they either find my number through someone or my email through someone, or they go online or whatever. Nothing is sacred anymore. With the internet services and whatever, you can find anybody you want. I don't do much advertising as far as giving out my name and number and email address, but people tend to reach me. So, and and I do have people to call or text or whatever, and I respond to the calls and a mail that I do get.
Oh,
Uh,
well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time to do so. For those folks wanting to get a hold of Al, it is a privacy thing, and please consider those. And if you can get a hold of him, I know that he will be just as kind. as he has with us to entertain this recording. So, Al, I wanted to once again thank you for your time. Thank you for your service. Thank you for the legacy you have built with the Major League Baseball community. And on behalf of the Bob Feller Active Valor Foundation, thank you all for joining us on this episode.